Okay, so I think let's go back to our presentation and then let's work out that problem. Okay, so I hope you have at least read what the problem statement was. So I'll repeat for reference to others, those who have not read. Let's say there is a processor is sending an address, and now this address is sent so that we can get a reading, or basically this address is sent to different mem devices, and based on the address mapping the corresponding device would be activated. That particular device will read the value from inside and then will send it back to the processor. Now, to make things easier, we have kept all of those things as one bus controller. So this bus controller is not actual bus controller, but for sake of simplicity, we said that the whole management of sending address to these mem elements or devices and getting the data from device to processor is done by a particular circuit, and we are calling that particular circuit as bus controller. While dealing with this circuit, we have to keep one thing in mind, that this particular circuit is kept intentionally very simple. In a realistic hardware, things would be much more complicated. For example, whenever processor is interacting with multiple memory elements, so it could read as well as it could write, and sometime it is possible that there would be multiple read requests at the same time, multiple write requests at the same time, and there could be parallel read and write request running from the same processor. So there could be, because you see sometime your read is taking 10 cycle, 15 cycle, so within the same time you also issue the another read so that your all the memory devices can remain busy. So let's say a reading from memory device require 10 cycles. So whenever this read is issued, output would be received only after 10 cycles. So why not to utilize these 9 cycles in accessing any other read if it is there to memory 1, memory 2, or memory 3. So those bus controllers would be taking all those features in mind, and it will become sometime much more complicated. And further, here there is no clock involved. We are assuming that everything is being done in a as a combinational circuit. As soon as address is sent, memory would be able to respond, and the data would be sent back to processor. So this way there is a completely combinational circuit. While in a realistic scenario, memories devices are usually slower, processor is faster, so because of mismatch they don't work within the same clock domain, or the design cannot be combinational. So overall, in summary, what I'm saying is this design is simplistic, but it will help us in understanding how those designs would actually be designed. Okay. So the second detail about this circuit is that at every device, the interface is something like this: that address is sent and data is received, and there in every mem device there is a chip enable which is involved. Now, what is the size of the address bus of all these devices? That depends on amount of memory it has. So, for example, one device start from address 0 and ends at address 047. So that means total 8 memory elements are there. So address bus width would be 3. Similarly, device 2 will start from address 8 and will finish at 0 cross 1F. Total number of memory elements in this device is 24, but this 24 would be represented by 5 bits, so that's why these 5 bits are here. And in memory 3, the address will start from 0 cross 20, and end address would be 0 cross 7F, and address width would be 7. Similarly, memory 4 address will start at 0 cross 80, and end address would be 0 cross FF, and the address bus width would be 7. So one more thing, let's assume that the data which we are sending is address which we are sending is 8-bit, and similarly let we can also assume the data which we are getting is also 8-bit, 1 byte. So 1 byte address and 1 byte of data would be received. But this 1 byte would be sent, only 3 bytes out of this 3 bits out of these 8 bits would be sent here, and 5 bits would be sent here, and 7 bits would be sent here, and 7 bits would be sent here. So if this is the problem statement, now the first question which comes to our mind is, how do we start? The problems look complicated in first instance, and also there is so much of detail which is lying here and there, and sometimes the details is missing, which we have to implicitly determine that what the detail was. So starting well, doing a good start in such kind of problem is very, very important. So what my key solution here is that first divide the problem into smaller sub problems, or in other words, divide and conquer. So let's divide this particular problem into multiple problems, and then for each individual small pieces or each individual small problem, what we will do is we'll try to see that what is the functionality, what is the input, what is the output, and then solve all these problems individually. Okay, so then the whole bigger problem will become smaller interconnected components. Okay, and if we are able to design those individual components, then we would be probably able to see the solution in an easier manner. Okay, so if we see this particular philosophy of divide and conquer and the problem, whatever was said here, now if we need to design divide into multiple pieces, what pieces should we start? So so this bus control, I can divide all of these three things, or this whole bus control logic into these three parts. One part which is collecting addresses from the processor and sending it to all the MEM devices. I'll call this particular part or functionality as address control. And similarly, the other one is that you need to generate chip enable signals, CE signals, and send it to all memory devices. Let's call this particular part of functionality as CE control. And there is a third one where you will receive the data from all the memory devices and will send it back to processor. Let's call it data control. So if we divide this functionality into these three independent modules, which are although connected to each other, but we can see that how those are connected, and then we try to find the functionality of each and every one, try to identify what are the inputs, what are the outputs, and then we try to see that what could be a good design option. Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll go one by one. We'll start with address control and then CE control and then data control. So let's first do the address control. So in address control, one thing which is very clear here, that my input is 8-bit address which is coming from processor. Okay, the other one output is also more or less clear, that my output is memory 1 dot address. So I'm writing memory 1 dot address. It's kind of a very long syntax that you are saying that address port of the mem1. So mem1 dot address would require 3 bits, and mem2 dot address would require 5 bits, and mem3 and mem4 dot address require, both of them require 7 bits. Now the question is, yeah, this input and output is clear, but what is the functionality? Functionality is that if my output is n bit, let's say 3, 5, or 7, then what is being done, that lower n significant bits are copied from input to output. So let's say I have address which is 8 bits, so lower 7 bits would be copied if it is mem4 dot address. and lower 7 bit would be copied mem3 in case of lower 3 bits would be copied if it is mem1 dot address. Now to make things simpler, my questions original question doesn't tell whether address would be sent to all the mem devices all the time, or should it be sent only when that particular device need to be activated. Here we can take an implicit approach also, and we can implicitly assume that unless that particular chip is enabled, whatever data we send, it will not be effective. So if we take that particular approach, then we can always send address to all the devices, and based on the chip enable, then that address would be either read by system or will not be. Okay, so given this functionality, given this input and output, at least now it is clear that how my module would look like, and what are we supposed to do. So here the functionality which I need to achieve is I need to copy and some of the bits from input to output. So the question now is how to copy data in digital circuits. So I'll give a pause for some 20 seconds, and you think over it in your mind that how we can copy data in digital circuits. So should we write, for example, should we write some kind of a move instructions, or should we say assign instructions, or should we, how should we do it? Okay, the answer is very simple. To copy the data in digital circuit, you simply have to connect those wires. So you have an input wire, you have an output wire, you can simply connect them. Okay, now one wire here, one thing which is important, that if you have an output wire, if you have an input wire, that can be connected to multiple outputs. This is called fan out. Okay, so your here input was address, and that, let's say, 0th bit of address can be connected to 0th bit of address of all the MEM devices. So that means the fan out of that particular wire will become 4. There is no problem in connecting it, and simply by connecting them, the data would be copied. How it is copied? Now, whatever is the voltage at that particular wire, input of the wire, that voltage would be transferred at the output end. Okay, so this is how data is copied. Now, to represent the same thing in Verilog or in C, we typically use assign statements. So when we say assign, we can select a selected number of bits, and we say, we know that this mem address, mem1 address is 3 bit. So we take 3 bits of the processor address and we assign it to mem1 address. Similarly, we take 5 bits of the processor address and we assign to mem2 address. Mem2 address is 5 bits. Mem3 address is 7 bits. So we take 7 bits of processor address and we copy it to mem3 address. So try to understand, I'll repeat, try to understand that these assign statements are for Verilog to tell Verilog that this particular value will become that. But in actual hardware, they're simple connection of wires. There is no logic involved. There is nothing other than that involved. So this way, this address control circuit is probably one of the simplest part in this example. Now let's go to the second one, which is CE control. So here in CE control, I can represent the functionality. I'm rewriting the table, address mapping table here. So what we are saying is that if address is equal to more than 0 and it is less than 8, then mem1.ce should be 1. Similarly, if address is more than 8, more than or equal to 8, and it is less than 0 cross 20, then mem2 should be enabled. If address is more than equal to 0 cross 20 and it is less than 0 cross 80, then mem3 should be enabled. And if address is more than 0 cross 80, then mem4 should be enabled. So by looking at the functionality, we can clearly figure it out. What is the input? Input is address, which is coming from processor, and what is the output? Output is chip enabled signal of all the MEM devices: MEM1, MEM2, MEM3, MEM4. So now the idea here is we have to see how to generate chip enabled signal given this kind of a address encoding or address mapping. So I'll again pause for a moment, and then we'll ask you to think what should be the solution of this particular problem. That given an address like this, what should be, how should I generate my output, chip enable output of all these MEM1, MEM2, MEM3, MEM4. It should be at least easier than the way you have studied yesterday, you have read yesterday. Now we have a very clear problem that the address is given to us and we have to generate chip enable signal. So one of the easiest solution which comes to my mind is I use 2 is to power 256 decoder and then use OR gates. So let's say I use this 2 is to 256 decoder, and then what it will do is it will take 8-bit address as an input and it will generate 256 outputs, and it will make sure that only one of the output would be 1. Which one would be 1 will help me in determining whether it is MEM1 should be chip enabled, or MEM2 should be enabled, MEM3 should be enabled, MEM4 should be enabled. So for example, if I use if I try to tie output 0 to output 7 and connect it to an 8 input OR gate, then I would, if any of these output from 0 to 7, if any of these 8 lines are high, that means we have made sure that MEM1 has to be unequal. Similarly, if we make sure, if we see that any one of the output from starting from 8 to 31 is high, then MEM2 has to be enabled. Similarly, if any of the output pin from 32 to 127 is high, that means MEM3 has to be enabled. At rest, if any of the pin from 128 to 255 is high, that means MEM4 has to be enabled. Of course, this will work, and this is a valid solution. But what is the problem? The problem is actually delay as well as area. So you see, for the same problem, first of all, you are creating 8 to 256 decoders. What does that mean? It means if I see just the cost of this 8 to 256 decoders, it would require 256 AND gates with 8 inputs. So 256 AND gate with 8 input, a delay of 8 input AND gate, if we use our yesterday's formula, then it would be 4 units of delay, 3 units of delay. Okay, so there's a 3 units of delay and 256 such AND gates. And similarly, if I want to design a 128 input OR gate, the delay would be 7 units. 7 plus 3, 10 units of delay plus lot many number of gates. So so that means delay cost is also high, and also because we are using so many number of gates, because you're using so many number of gates, your area cost is also high. Can we think of a better solution? As I said, the solution is valid, but not a suitable one because of the area cost and because of the delay involved. So think about it like this. In starting all this presentation, we thought we discussed this multiplexer can be used for if-else conditions, and when we kept it here, it looks like a if-else condition. So can we use it using a multiplexer and make it like a if-else conditions, and then move forward from there? If it is so, in if-else, I have to generate a signal. This is the if condition. This if condition is That means address should be more than 0, more than equal to 0, and address should be less than 8. So that means I need to first evaluate this condition and see that how when this particular condition would be true. So similarly, all these conditions has to be evaluated. Then I think a little more about it, and then what I can see is for those comparisons, I need to for those comparisons I need to use some kind of a comparators. And let us say if I see more carefully, if there are only 3 comparators, that would be sufficient. So one comparator which is comparing with 7, another which is comparing with 31, another which is comparing with 127. So this comparator, if my value is less than or equal to, LE means less than or equal to. So if my address is less than or equal to, I can clearly say this is memory 1 chip enabled, or memory MM1 should be enabled. If it is greater than, then there are 2 possibilities. First of all, address is more than 7, and second, your address is less than 31. So you have to understand this, that your address, if it is less than 31, it could be less than 7 also. So that's why we have to remove that particular case, that address is less than 7. So we have to say that address should be more than 7, it should be greater than 7, and it should be less than 31. So if I add these 2 conditions, I can say this is MEM2 chip enabled. Similarly, for the third comparison, if it is less than 127, then I also have to make sure that it is more than 31. So I can enable these 2 and these 2 conditions, greater than 31 and less than 127, and then I can say that this is the MEM3 chip enabled. And if it is more than 127, then it is clearly MEM4 chip enabled. There is no requirement to put this additional condition which says that should be less than FF, because if my address input is 8-bit, it would be natural that it would be always less than FF. And similarly, there is no requirement of this condition, because if it is 8-bit, then it would be always more than 0. So that's why these 3 comparisons would help us: comparison with 8, comparison with 20, comparison with 80, 0 cross 8. So rather than using multiplexer, what we have done is we have created our own custom multiplexer. So in this custom multiplexer, we have found all those conditions. Now we can use these conditions. Yeah. So these conditions can be utilized. Okay. So now let's again do a delay analysis and area cost comparison analysis. So I need to design a comparator which is comparing an address with 127. So how to design a comparator? Comparator there are 2 ways to design comparator. Either we design the comparator using subtractor, or we do a bitwise comparator. Even if we do a bitwise comparator, it will go bit by bit. So it's like a ripple carry adder. So it will first compare the MSB, then it will go to MSB minus 1, then MSB minus 2. The way we used to compare any 2 digital numbers in our standard conventional mathematics. So that means if I want to compare a 8-bit number, so there would be at least 8-bit of delay here, and here 5 bits of delay here. Okay, so these 8-bit of delay plus this 1 AND gate, that means delay is somewhat lesser than the previous design. Area cost has substantially reduced, because the comparator cost would be much lesser than 8 cross 8 to 256 decoder. So yeah, definitely this particular circuit is much efficient than the previous one. But can we do even better? So we have to see that there is a nice property of this address. So when we are comparing with address with 7, so that means what we are saying is that if all the upper 5 bits, all of them are 0. Okay, if all of them are 0, then it is definitely your memory 1 chip enable has to be high. So that means your if we make sure that all the upper 5 bits are 0, that means the number is either 7 or less than 7. Similarly, if we say that upper 3 bits are always 0, then the number is less than or equal to 31. And if we say the MSB is 0, then number is always less than 127. So if we choose this particular property, then we can efficiently, rewrite this whole circuit of comparison. We can convert into simple AND. Okay, so what we are saying is that if all of these bits are 0, then invert of AND gate, that means NAND gate, will give me a chip enable for member. Similarly, if 3 bits, top 3 bits are 1, that means this particular output is less than 31. Okay, so less than or equal to 31, but we need to make sure that it lies between 8 and 32. So we have to put in another AND gate which says that my chip enable for mem1 should be low, and then here it should be less than 31, then it is chip enable for 32, mem2. So similarly for the third one, you can say if my address 7 or the MSB is 0 and it is not, and it is mem2 is not enabled. I should have taken it out from there actually. Yeah, so this is wrong. So essentially I should have taken it out from here. So it should be less than 31, and it should be it should be more than 31. So that means an AND gate here, and it should be less than 128. Then we can design it like then we can definitely say it is mem3. And if my address line 7, so that means MSB is 1, then we can definitely say that it is only mem2, mem4, which has to be chip enable. Okay, so this is another typo here. This is mem4 dot chip enable. Now this is most efficient implementation. Here in this implementation, the whole chip enable circuit requires only 4 gates. And if we talk about the delay of this would be 3 and plus 1. So 4 gate delay. 4 gate delay, if it is two input AND gate would require 1 input of delay. So this is how it's very efficient. Okay, so in summary, what we have seen is that we see that what are the inputs, what are the outputs, and then we thought that how we can optimize the design. Okay, and when we keep on thinking, then our new options will keep on coming by looking at the observations of input, by looking at functionality, so on and so forth. Okay, so let's look at the last one, data control. Data control. So data control part, the specification is simple. That specification says that input is coming from mem1, mem2, mem3, mem4, and based on the address, we have to send it to the processor. So if we look at the initial diagram, which we have seen, that processor is sending address, and after the address is sent to the chip enable is sent to the particular mem, and then that particular mem will send the data, and that particular data need to be sent back to processor. Okay, so I can now clearly say what is the input. Input is mem1 dot data, mem2 dot data, mem3 dot data, and mem4 dot data, and probably the address is the input. Based on the address, we have to send it to the processor, and output is clearly processor data. So the question now is that so this we know that it is very clear that we can use our multiplexer, that there are 4 inputs, and we have to send one of that input to the output. So here output is processor data. So but the question is how to design control. Who will decide? So should we do again the same jugglery which we did for the previous case? should we do the same jugglery for the previous case? That means we take the address and we identify that what was the address range, and based on the address range we calculate the control of this mux. Okay, and then convert that control into a 2-bit control. Possibly yes or no. Okay, so can we do something better? Probably a better idea can be that we can use the chip enable signal that has been generated by our control module, CE control module. So the CE control module anyway has generated CE signals. So the problem here is that now chip enable signal therefore, and for control for 4:1 mux we require only 2 bit of controls. How to do that? So shall we again go for an encoding, and then after encoding then we send those 2 bits here. Possibly that would be too much of overkill, because your encoding would take another couple of gates, and then using those 2 inputs here will also make 4:1 mux more complicated. So rather than that, we can use one hot encoded mux. So we can send all these 4 inputs, CE1, CE2, C3, CE4 as the control input of this mux, and based on that control input of mux, now it would require 2 input AND gate at all of these places and 1 OR gate. So it would be an efficient as well as a fast design, and much less complex, because we are reusing the components which we have done already. So this way the whole integration of this whole module, which is working like a bus control, this bus control can be designed. So with this we can finish this particular part. Now what I can summarize is this: the approach we have to take is we have to break the problem into smaller pieces. Now you can, although this slide was told in the beginning of this part, but now it would make probably more sense that first breaking the problem into smaller pieces, then for each piece what we had done was we identified the functionality, we identified what was the input, what is the output. Now looking at the functionality, looking at input and output, then we design that individual part, and we also saw some of the if there is a reuse possible, if we can use any of the standard multiplexers, demultiplexers, priority encoders, or any standard component, and we use that. The other observation while doing all these things was is that it's actually an art. So there could be multiple solutions. So if there are 50 people sitting here, there could be some variation in solution 1 and solution 2. Everybody can propose their own solution, and most of the solutions can be correct. Okay. Now learning an art means if we keep on doing practice, then we will know the secrets of the trade, and we'll know that various practices which are used by people to do an efficient design. Although, like, let's say if we have to choose between multiple solutions, which particular solution to be choose as the final solution, then based on objective function, let's say what could be the objective function? Objective functions could be area, it could be performance, it could be power, and most important, it could be design time. So let's say the problem is asked in an exam time and you have only 30 minutes to respond to that problem. You cannot create the best optimal solution. You can do only whatever can be done in that half an hour. Similarly, the same scenario exists for industry also, that industry has to tape out, let's say, a new design within 6 months. They have to tape out, not only design. So that means they have to design, model, verify, fabricate, synthesize and fabricate all those parts. Now, because there is a constraint of 6 months, so they sometime will go for a suboptimal design also, which will meet the objective area, performance and power. Okay, so with this we can stop this particular part, and I can take your questions if you have any.